It was a tragedy of 9/11 being so close to the World Trade Center.
Okay.
And New York field office was largely taken offline because of the destruction in the immediate areas of the Trade Center facilities. And we were it. And, I'll tell you, we were not prepared. We
Yeah.
weren't prepared for that level of tragedy, disaster, of
Yeah.
crisis. I was working in the counterterrorism program at the time of the FBI. And
Welcome back to Internal Affairs, a police podcast here with the IA guy. Another special guest. You know what? I forgot to ask him what wonderful state in the United States he happens to be in. We'll get into that, but it's going to be a retired special agent from the Federal Bureau of Investigations. FBI is going to be in the house. Chris Piehota, the H being silent. We'll talk a little bit about that. But let's get him on, man. Code 6 with Chris. Hey, Chris, man, thanks for coming down, bro.
Marlon, thanks for having me on, and I appreciate some time to share some ideas with you and your audience, and look forward to a great conversation. And by the way, I am in the great state of Florida.
There you go, the state of Florida. You know, I finally, on a side note, got to go to Florida to go teach for Savage Training Group, my internal affairs course. I think we're in the process of getting, I think it's the 2-day officer involved shooting course in the wonderful city of Orlando. So hopefully you and I can connect, man.
Hey, that'd be great. I'm a little far from Orlando, but I'd love
Okay.
to try to hook up if we
Yeah,
can.
we'll make it happen somehow, some way. Hey, Chris, let me begin by saying that it is a different culture of discipline, right? Of misconduct, if you will, as it relates to the FBI compared to just a state or a local agency. Of course, we call it internal affairs. And the Office of Professional Responsibility, known as OPR, pretty much handles all alleged misconduct. Would that be pretty accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate. I mean, that's our internal investigative equivalent to what would be internal affairs for our state and local partners.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel after you did 25 years that things that go on in the FBI as it relates to alleged misconduct, is it a bit taboo just like it is with internal affairs? In other words, why do we have such a negative stigma attached to IA or OPR?
It
Why do you
is.
think that?
Yeah, it's the same environment, the same type of negative connotation. It's the same fear, the same, you become radioactive when you're under an OPR investigation. And, I think it's just the negative circumstances that surround it. And,
Uh huh.
you've had a breach of some sort of policy, practice, something that is outside of, approved operating parameters, whatever it might be, behavioral, operational. And I think that once you're in trouble, people tend to try to step away. And another thing I'll say this, and I don't think it has to be this way, but it is. The organization has made it a very frightening and very impacting process, right? It's not an instructional corrective process.
Mm-hmm.
Most everyone sees it as a punitive punishment process.
Right, right. So, would it be fair to say that it's weaponized?
You know what? I think it's seen as weaponized by nature of what it is,
Hmm.
right? And I do think that there are times when it is used in a punitive fashion
Hmm.
by the organization. And I think that's a mistake. And what I used to see on occasion was that certain parts of the process were actually used as the punishment, right? Before you even were adjudicated one way or the other, the process itself became part of the punishment cycle. And
Yeah.
I thought that was wrong as well. I think it should be more corrective and instructive. If an officer or an agent violates a policy rule,
Hmm.
whatever the parameter was that was violated, and you prove that they did it, and they did it knowingly, and all the parameters that you have to follow. The process should be more corrective and instructive rather than punitive.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You took the words out of my famous, I should say infamous guest, Jimmy Zurich, who actually stated on this show when he became a guest was that, hey, Marlon, you know what? Uh, the punishment's not the penalty. The punishment is the actual process. It's the way we
Right.
treat ourselves. And I think that that's something that ignited and kind of, you know, pumped me up, if you will, to have a podcast relating to this internal affairs, where we just don't talk about it enough. And how is it that we can improve the way we actually treat each other? Because I wanted to ask you, if there is a policy violation, how is that handled by OPR compared to a public type of complaint?
Well, I mean, the OPR process is pretty similar to what you would consider the internal affairs process, right?
Okay.
They receive a complaint or a report. They look into it to see what the actual violation could be. They conduct an immediate review to see what's going on. They notify the person who is under investigation, and then they go about their rest of their investigative work. And of course, you're not allowed to talk to anybody about it. You're not allowed to tell anybody about it.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to
Yeah.
ask about it. And they put you in a sort of I would say a purgatory, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
You're in
for
kind of
sure.
professional purgatory. And that's where like I said, the process becomes part of the punishment,
Yeah.
if not the punishment. And I think the and this is just my personal opinion, so I'll say this. I think that the culture of the organization is represented by how it conducts its disciplinary
Yeah.
practices and how it conducts its OPR or its IA
Hmm.
investigations. You can see the culture of the organization very clearly when you watch that process run.
Yeah, totally. And let me ask you this. If you're in a room full of agents who are ready to begin their tour in OPR, what's the one thing you want them to know about that job?
Well, for me personally, I would be telling them this isn't personal. It's not about you, and it's not about the person involved on a personal level. It's about the actions taken, the policies or parameters that were allegedly or reportedly violated, and it's about what we are all supposed to do as professional law enforcement officers is you conduct an honest, objective, and considerate investigation, right?
Yeah.
That would be my initial guidance to them.
Well, you know what? I have to ask. You must be speaking from experience if you're telling if the one thing you want them to know is not to take it personal. I
Right, and
suppose.
and I'll tell you, I did have a couple of OPR incidents when I was active duty.
Okay.
One was on a. I'll tell you about one of them was a
Yeah. Tell
was,
me a story. Tell me an IA story, man. I'd love to hear it.
and this was it was kind of early in my career, and we were doing technical surveillance on an investigative target.
Okay.
And at the time, this was in the late 1990s, and we were still using reel-to-reel recording devices. And so when our authority would expire,
Hmm.
we would actually just go and unplug the reel-to-reel recorders, so we knew that we were offline. We weren't doing any kind of over collection.
Right.
So as technology evolved, we got these new digital systems. And during one of our collection cycles, it was set to expire while I was going to be out of town at a conference, myself, my supervisor, and a few other agents. So we left word, you must turn the machines off and stop collecting at this time on this date, no questions asked. And they all said, good, good, got it.
Okay.
So the new technical system comes online, and the folks felt and believed in their hearts that they actually shut the machines off.
Okay.
And come to find out, they did not. And so we had an over collection.
Okay. And so what happened after that?
Oh, well, we had a self-report. We had to sequester all the information that was collected after the expiration time and date.
Uh-huh.
We had to self-report to FBI headquarters, because we were out in the field and, sending anything to main headquarters was, of course, painful.
Right.
And we explained to them what happened, that it was a technical issue. And they, of course, said, yeah, that's great, but we don't care. And they sent it over to our friends at OPR to look at. And of
And
course, it goes into that black hole. You start getting the form letters. You start getting the, you did this, that, and the other violation of whatever, standby to standby. So then, and then you don't hear anything from anybody.
oh, which is the worst, right?
Right.
So
And
let me, if I may interject. So
sure.
what you felt was an infraction turned out to be the felony of the year by
Well,
OPR.
Marlon, they all are, right?
They
I
all
mean,
are exactly. It's like the crime of the century. Oh my
right.
God, we got him.
Right. And that's what I mean. We do that to our own people, right? And here
Yeah.
we are doing what thought was, we were doing it with the best of intention and effort.
Yes.
I
Yes.
wasn't even within the zip code where we were, at the office. I was in another state. So
Wow.
we tried to do this properly. For some reason, the technology, our guys couldn't get the things shut off properly in time. And we had this issue. Now, as we said earlier, the process becomes the punishment. You start
Yes.
looking at this, everybody's scared, you don't know what's going on, nobody will talk to you. You get called in by the office leadership, they read you the form letter, and we're standing there, me and my supervisor, and I'm telling him afterwards, I'm sorry, man. My supervisor gets called in there. He was with me at the conference, right?
Wow.
So he's getting read the riot act too. So
Oh my
it's
God.
kind of an unfortunate thing. But again, as I said, you could see the culture in the office where we were and
Uh-huh.
the organization by how they treated this. And, and here's what I told somebody recently. We were talking about some of the cultural parts of this.
Hmm.
If you don't give your people some top cover for certain oversights or infractions that happen while they're doing the best they can to accomplish the mission, you're going to have a workforce or a police force of,
Yeah.
of individuals who are scared to do their jobs and they become
Yeah.
timid and they become less effective on behalf of the communities they
Yeah.
serve.
No, no. That is true and accurate. What I will say is, if you don't mind me asking,
Mhm.
how long did this whole process take by the time you got called in and got served with
Uh,
whatever that penalty was? A couple of
couple,
months?
no, this one was actually several weeks. They must have not been too busy down there. So several weeks. But the process itself lasted several months,
Yeah, no, totally.
right? So we're all sitting around just kind of, hey, what do we know? We don't know what's going to happen,
Yeah,
whether it's going to be are we going to get a letter of censure? Are we going to get time off? Or are we going to get,
exactly.
well, you
But
don't know, right?
yet, exactly. But yet, we are one big happy family. We are the thin blue line. We're supposed to look out for one another, and we're
Well,
brothers and sisters. But hold on a second. You got this little violation of procedure, which turns out to be a felony for OPR, and talk about hypocrisy to its
well,
highest level. We do it to
ah,
ourselves, like you said.
yeah, I mean, it's the culture that we've created for ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I'll take you to the end of this story, right? So we get called, and at the FBI, the person who runs the field office is a
Hmm.
special agent in charge. That's
Okay.
their title.
Hmm.
So he's the head guy at the field office or lady, but we had a gentleman at the time, and he
Hmm.
was an old style FBI guy, right? He was an old like a G-man type.
Uh-huh.
So my supervisor he rings me down in my office. He goes, "Hey man, we got to go up and see the SAC." I'm thinking, all
Hmm.
right. So he and I both go up there. We sit in the SAC, invites us into his office. He looks at the letter. He's looking over his glasses at us. He's looking at the letter. He says, I understand that this happened. And he said, have a seat, gentlemen. And so we sit down and he reads the letter to us. And at the end, it said that we were supposed to be properly counseled and, appropriate action as he deemed fit. So he looks at us. He says, gentlemen, consider yourselves counseled. We have work to do. Go back to work. And he, right in front of us, takes the letter and he throws it in the garbage.
I love it.
Right in front of us, right? He throws it in the garbage and we just say, "Hey, thank you, sir." And you say, "Okay, let's go
Yeah.
get back to work, guys."
Good.
Right?
Good.
But he
Love
was
it.
an old style guy. He was an old
Yeah.
style G man. And I think we've lost that where the old style cops, "Hey, you're doing your job, you're working hard. Don't do this again. See you
Yeah.
later."
Knock it off. You'd
Right.
learn from it and move on. Which leads me to ask you. Now, you retired how long ago?
I retired in January of 2020.
Okay, so it's been a couple of years.
Mhm.
And what I meant to ask you was this incident and the way this process, if you will, was handled back in the 90s.
Right.
Have things gotten any better by the time that you left?
I don't think so. I would say they might have even kind of declined a little bit more as we became a lot more of a risk averse organization, worried about litigation, worried about how
Yeah.
things appeared. We were also, I would say, we became a much more zero tolerance organization, right? Like
Right.
many have. Zero tolerance for errors, zero tolerance for mistakes or anything like that.
Yeah.
And one of my problems with that approach was we're dealing with human beings and
Yeah.
human beings make mistakes and they have lapses in judgment or whatever it might be.
Yeah. No,
And
totally. You might
when you
have a
take
bad
that
day and make bad
zero,
decisions.
definitely, and when you take that zero tolerance type of approach,
Hmm.
I think you're doing your people a disservice.
Yeah.
You're creating an environment of fear and trepidation. And I think again, it shows where the organization stands on how it treats its folks from a cultural perspective.
Yeah, no. Again, another true and accurate statement to all my LAPD listeners and people who are watching. You heard it from here. We've had a zero tolerance when it comes to alleged misconduct since 1997, when Chief Parks became the chief of police as a result of the Rampart scandal. And then, of course, the consent decree came along in 2001, and we just kind of double down on that zero tolerance when it comes to alleged misconduct. So,
Let me ask you a question, Marlon.
sure.
Did those actions from the senior leadership of the LAPD
Hmm.
did those actions do anything to increase the boldness or initiative or the guts of the street officers or the detectives?
No, not at all. In fact,
Opposite,
LAPD is a big machine, and uh, I'm a big critic of our disciplinary machine. It's fine tuned and well oiled, but of course, there's always room for improvement. That's the best way to describe it. However, there is culture, and I think culture kind of dictates how you're going to handle discipline and how you're not.
right?
And the shittiest part about it is that there's no parity, man, at all. It's so in other words, you can be LAPD Devonshire Division, which is in the San Fernando Valley, and have an IA compared to 77th, the mothership in South LA, and be handled completely different and be adjudicated completely different.
Well,
And
because
so,
what you have cultures and subcultures,
correct,
right?
correct,
And
one hundred percent,
even then it varies from investigator to investigator,
correct.
right? Because
Yes.
I've seen where people had certain ROPR investigators,
Hmm.
and these people couldn't have been more professional and considerate and just handled it with just skill and finesse. And also some other ones who were, they felt as though they were there to, stamp out bad behavior and
Yeah.
they were there to apply punishment themselves. And it was terrible to watch. Just
One, two, and in addition to that, some, and I've heard it from guests. I've had 100+ guests thus far in a year of doing this podcast, and some say it's to stamp, that resume for the next promotion. It happens as much as you don't want to believe it.
yeah,
That's part of the culture, man.
but I blame the organization for it because they're incentivizing that behavior.
Yeah,
Not it shouldn't be like how many of your fellow law enforcement officers can you bag,
yeah,
right?
totally,
That shouldn't be a parameter for your promotion capability, right?
100%. And with that being said, I want to be fair and
Right.
clear about my opinion, just from my experience, that it's not only just from discipline. I mean, you can go your career in LAPD and make command staff officer, make captain and above without having a tour in internal affairs. And by merit, right? I mean, you worked operations, you're very in tune with patrol functions, you're very well liked, you got a great reputation, character, et cetera, and you'll make it. However, there is some beliefs that when you have an eye toward, under your folder, right, your resume, yeah, you know what, we're going to take it to the next step. But that's for another conversation. And appreciate that, man. Look, you know what? This is a good segue to Wanted, the FBI I once knew. What I really would love to ask you, what motivated you or what provoked you to
Well,
write this book?
well, I spent 25 years with the FBI, and I served since the mid 90s through 9/11, and then through the other years of FBI evolution after 9/11.
Uh-huh.
And when I came into the FBI, it was still a cops and robbers organization
Mm-hmm.
primarily, right? We were the old bureau kind of being dragged, kicking and screaming into the
Mm-hmm.
modern age. And that's when I kind of came in. And I watched the bureau change after 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in Newark, New Jersey, I mean, I saw the smoke rising from the first tower strike out my office window, and the world was never the same after that. And the FBI changed violently from that reactive law enforcement organization that it was, and it was moved, just in an incredible violent shift to being a domestic security and national security organization,
Mm.
right? So all of the criminal investigative programs were severely deprioritized to make room for the new focus on counterterrorism, counterintelligence,
Mm-hmm.
cyber issues, and things of that sort. So I wrote the book so that I could preserve the how I learned how to be an FBI agent from the old breed guys,
Uh-huh.
right? They taught me how to be an FBI agent. They told me how to behave. This is the bureau. This is how you're going to do business. And I wanted to preserve some of those lessons and some of that bureau upbringing, so to speak, how I learned how to be an FBI agent. I also wanted to give people an idea from my bird's eye view
Mm-hmm.
of how the bureau changed, what happened to the FBI after 9/11 that led us to what the bureau is today, which it's the organization's struggling on some levels. Public trust
Yeah.
is down, right? The
Yeah.
image of the bureau has been tarnished on some levels. There have been some claims of political bias or the departure
Yeah.
from an apolitical FBI, which is
Yeah.
intolerable, right? And the public trust has eroded.
Yeah.
And that's why I wrote the book, because I want people to understand this is, from my view, my journey with the FBI from 9/11 to now.
Yeah.
Here are some of the causal factors. Here's what changed. Here's why the FBI ran into some difficulty in the past several years.
Okay.
So that's kind of what it was for. It was to open a conversation, especially now. It was kind of uh, the timing was fortuitous because we have the current director Ray.
Mm-hmm.
He is stepping down
Mm-hmm.
from his position as FBI director with the incoming administration, and the Trump administration incoming has signaled that it would like to see a leadership change at the
Yeah.
top of the bureau. And now you have the nomination of Kash
Cash
Patel as
Patel. Mm-hmm.
potentially the next FBI director. So a lot of confusion out there, a lot of political wrangling, a lot of just discussions on would have, could have, should have type of stuff. I
Yeah.
want my book to be out there as a more objective view
Mm-hmm.
on things, that maybe the FBI was, maybe what the FBI is, and then what the FBI should be for the
Should be.
American people.
Do you, if I may ask, have you um, received any negative comments or uh, characteristics about your book?
No, actually, I haven't. I think most of the folks, I mean, some people disagree with my position on things, which is fine. I mean, they could just
Uh-huh.
say, "Hey, I didn't see it that way." Okay, awesome. You know,
Okay.
I appreciate their perspective. I haven't received any terrible like poison back
Yeah.
from people,
Death
which I
threats or anything like
expected.
that?
No, no, nothing like that. What I have received is a lot of actual agreement and nods of concurrence with
Mhm.
people saying we need some change at the top.
Yeah.
We need some cultural change. A lot of folks hit me up on the side and said, when I left the bureau, I was unhappy. I was disillusioned. All those type of things. And I thought I felt so sorry for that because I was one of the most senior officials at the FBI when I retired.
Okay.
And the fact that we let our people leave the organization after 20 plus years of
Yeah.
service and they leave on a negative note and they're disillusioned and unhappy with the time they spent. I mean, I just find that to be tragic. And these people, gave, like I said, I spent 25 years or a quarter of a century, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And other people spend that time and they leave unhappy. And Marlon, I don't think we're doing our folks a justice by allowing
Oh
that.
no, 100%. Hey Chris, let me ask you this. If I were to put you in a time capsule, right? Back in your department right now in the bureau. Tell me about the one thing, and I know there's so many, but what's the one thing you would like to see change right away?
The leadership and well, the culture, right? The
Okay.
culture and the leadership environment, they're kind of tied together, right? Because
Okay.
the culture gives you the leadership environment. That's the first thing that has to be changed, and it has to be changed assertively, overtly, and it has to be re-ingrained through every part of the FBI, and then other things will start taking care of themselves.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
that's what I would work on first because everybody wants to come in and well, we're going to provide training. Well, okay, you can provide
Yeah.
training.
Yeah.
We're gonna get new computers. We're gonna get new, this. Hey, how about
Yeah.
this? And I'm sure you can appreciate this. Oh, we don't think they're doing a good job. We're going to give them more policies to follow and more approvals, and we're going to give them what I call penance-based solutions. Right?
Yeah.
You
Of
guys
course.
screwed up. You're going to pay that type
Yeah.
of thing. And all that does is it bogs the organization down, like we talked about. It makes people scared and apprehensive.
Yeah.
And I would go with culture and leadership environment because if you have strong, capable leaders who are principled in what they do
Hmm.
and they model the behaviors that we want the organization to operate
Yeah.
under, people will start snapping into place. And if they don't, you excuse them from the organization, right?
Yeah. No, totally.
And
I gotta say that the FBI has been a newsworthy agency, if you will, for the past, oh gosh, I guess this last administration, or even before,
but
where you're just right at the front center of every news media. And the shittiest part about it, and this is just my opinion, because I mean, let's keep it real here. I am a Fox News guy. That's all I am, and we hear it all. But it's interesting how other media outlets don't really necessarily cover, to your point, the leadership and the culture of the bureau, and the FBI is considered the top cop, man. It's the top major organization in the world.
Well,
What do you think?
and that's one of the shame, but that's the shame of it though, right? The
Yeah.
FBI is what I call a bellwether organization. And a lot of times the practices of the FBI kind of lead the way for a lot of other law enforcement organizations, right? And when
Yes.
we have large partner organizations such as LAPD, NYPD,
Hmm.
you look at those, they're bellwether organizations as well.
Hmm.
And if the FBI isn't seen as doing the right thing for the right reasons, and it's not, to me, pulling that train of ethics, of principles, of being trusted by the American public, then the organization's in jeopardy. It put itself in jeopardy. And I'll
Yeah.
say this. I think many of the wounds outside of the political circus in DC, right? many of the wounds that the FBI has encountered have been of its own doing. They haven't
Yeah.
done themselves any favors on how they've handled certain incidents and certain situations. And I've seen several of them that, when right after I retired, it broke my heart. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't understand why certain things started occurring as they did. Again, it was that declining culture and leadership environment that probably allowed it to happen. I'm not going to say it caused it, that nobody was going around and looking for poor outcomes, but they allowed it to happen.
Yeah. No. Totally, man. You know what? Culture will definitely dictate what you do, and in some cases, what you don't do. And those are the things that we're trying to change. And I appreciate you sharing your book. And let's get the audience to definitely buy it and get a read.
Yeah, I'd appreciate it because we want to make sure that outside of what we learn on social media,
Yeah,
right? There are many things that should be talked about when it
W-
comes to our protective agencies and organizations.
yeah, one hundred
And you
percent.
want it to be honest and objective,
Mhm.
and you want to make sure that the folks that we serve aren't more afraid of us than they are of our criminal elements or our national security threats.
Yeah, no, 100%. I recall, and maybe you can remember back in 1993 when there was a Times article. You remember Time magazine
Yes.
that pretty much had a survey, a poll. Of course, they don't tell you who was actually surveyed, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And the poll, the survey believed that 56% of the American people thought that the FBI was responsible for the David Koresh, uh, 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 uh,
Waco.
the Waco. Thank you, the Waco uh, incident, where they felt that those incendiary gases that they threw were the reasons why it caused, this whole compound to go up in flames. And of
Yeah.
course, Janet Reno appointed John Ashford, Senator Ashford, to do a complete inquiry. And man, I read the whole thing. And the reason why I know this is because I used it for my speech debate class when I was in college.
Well,
And you know what? And the reason why I bring that up is because, look, if we're going to be on the news to talk about a controversy, that's okay in my opinion, because it's an operation and people are allowed to have the opinion to think that, wow, man, this didn't go all that well. Now, considering it was the longest standoff in the history of law enforcement, right? 51 days. And a lot happened, and we can have a whole conversation and a whole episode about it, but that to me is newsworthy compared to what's been going on the last couple of years with the FBI.
I'll just say this: Waco was a little before my time,
Yeah,
right? I'll Monday morning quarterback for a second. The FBI was not the only law enforcement organization there,
correct.
correct?
Yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
Okay. But the FBI, being the FBI, should have maybe taken a more of a leadership role in
Mhm.
how that situation was handled.
Correct.
And here's the problem I saw with Waco, and then Ruby Ridge and
Ruby Ridge is another
other yeah,
landmark case
right.
incident.
The people who we are supposed to be protecting might not be as willing to call us in the future after
Right.
those types of events.
Yeah,
It
good
has an
point.
effect on people to say, oh, do we really want these people here to help
Yeah,
us? They're going to
yeah,
come here and they're going to, bring, tanks and,
yeah.
and incendiary bombs.
Exactly.
And
All these bombs, we're going to get people
right,
out of here, and it's
right.
yeah, it's a mess. It was a
So that's what I
mess.
mean. It's just, and I think with the bureau then, and of course, we all have short organizational memories, right? We forget
Correct.
about those things. And the bureau now, what they have, I think, forgotten recently again was the public gets a vote.
Yes.
How things look and how things appear to people are as important, and maybe more so, than what actually happened.
Yeah.
right? So I think they've got to get back to looking at themselves with a very critical view. They've got to look at themselves on how well they're navigating the social and political landscapes in addition to the threat landscape,
Yeah.
right? You can't just look at the threats and not worry about how the people feel about how we're protecting them. So those are some of the things that I think what they should be looking at now. I mean, I touch upon them in my book and try to give some ideas on how we can recalibrate the FBI just based on my experience and what I was taught by the old guys.
That's awesome, Chris. Hey man, let me ask you this. Worst incident in your career?
Worst, I had a lot. Are you talking about an incident that
Which one
I
sticks out the
managed,
most?
responded to, or that
Yeah,
something?
yeah. You tell me. Whatever sticks out that you can think of that just resonates vividly
Well,
in your mind.
unfortunately, it was 9/11.
Yeah.
Right? It was a tragedy of 9/11 being so close to the World Trade Center.
Were you in
Uh,
New York at the time?
I was in Newark, New Jersey, across
Okay.
the river.
Okay.
And New York field office was largely taken offline because of the destruction in the immediate areas of the Trade Center facilities. And we were it. And, I'll tell you, we were not prepared. We
Yeah.
weren't prepared for that level of tragedy, disaster, of
Yeah.
crisis, and really showed me that no matter how well prepared you think you are, you're
Yeah.
not. And one of the, and I'll leave the conversation at this. I was working in the counterterrorism program at the time of the FBI, and we thought we were doing a pretty good job, and the adversary was better than we were,
Hmm.
and they kicked our tails. And as a result, people lost loved ones, family members, massive property damage. And I'm not saying we could have stopped it out of the Newark office. I think the FBI as a whole failed to see the operational
Yeah.
horizon.
Yeah.
But people looked at us to say, where were you? How could this have happened? And for
Yeah.
me, that was like personally devastating because we are the protectors. I mean, the FBI, we're the dragon slayers, right? And we failed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I found that to be one of the worst
Yeah.
events. And I'll tell you this too, Marlon. I mean, and later in my career, I got the privilege of overseeing a lot of our technical programs and scientific programs, and we had to respond to all of the mass shootings that happened over the course of years, and just watching what people can do to each other was troubling.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for sharing that, Chris. I really appreciate it, man. So tell me, how can we get a hold of you, and what are we doing now besides the book?
All
What
right.
type of services do you render? Talk to me.
Okay. Well, what I do right now is I'm mostly doing consulting work, leadership consulting, organizational development, product development, national security and security type of work that I help people with. So I have my own company. It's YF5 Solutions, and try to help people be successful. And because I've seen a few things and done a few things over the years that I think can help folks protect key personnel, assets, and infrastructures for their businesses and for their organizations. And that's pretty much what I'm focusing on now. I've worked with some cyber companies and I've worked with some other technology companies over the years since I retired. But I want to try and move off into some areas where I can help other people be successful and I can remain active and productive. And the you can get a hold of well, I'll say this. People always say, what's your social media? For the 25 years that I worked for the Bureau, social media was kind of frowned upon.
Yeah.
So we were that old breed of people that no
Yeah.
social
We'll get.
media. But I use the X platform. I am at
Yeah.
Chris Piehota on X. And I
Good.
also do LinkedIn, is which where you and I connected on
That's
LinkedIn.
right. LinkedIn's the
That's the
way to
extent
go.
of my social media.
Good for
So
you.
I'm still trying to move into the world of social media. I got to get my
Yeah.
grandkids to show me how to use other social media platforms.
Yeah. Let's make sure we definitely connect on X. I just started doing that with the show, so I'll hit you
That's
later
great.
on X and get some reels and everything out there, and of course this episode as well. Hey, Matt, it was a pleasure. We're at the end. Now I leave the floor up to you to give anyone any advice you have for anyone who wants to become In this case, a law enforcement FBI agent. What advice do you have for them, bro?
I tell them this is I go back and do it over all over again if they let me.
Yeah.
Even with the bad days, even with the OPRs, I'd go back and do it in a heartbeat. It's a great career, and it is a career, and it's a calling, and we protect the people of the nation. And if you can't go there ready to give some blood, sweat, and tears for your fellow Americans and be that silent, professional, protective presence,
Mhm.
then I would say look for a different career that may be better suited for what you're looking to do. But the FBI and my fellow law enforcement officers at the state and local levels, we're there to we stand between the people and the monsters out there.
Yeah, that's right,
So
man.
that's what I think, if folks are going to look to do that, that's the calling.
Amen. Hey, man, a curiosity. Why is the H silent in Piota? Just curious.
You know what? I couldn't even tell you because I think that when my ancestors came over, I think there were some more consonants in the name. I think they came from the Slovak area
Okay.
over in Europe. So I think you might have been some C's and Z's and some other stuff in there. And I guess when they got here, whoever was checking them in said, "All right, we can't have this."
We can't
And
have
they
all that. Let's just kind of
ex-
keep it simple.
exactly. So I think there were some more letters that were taken out, but that's what we were left with. And some people pronounce the H, some don't. I answer to either.
Hey, man, thanks for coming. It was a pleasure. Let's keep in touch. And want to make it out to that wonderful state of Florida. We definitely have to connect. Okay.
Definitely. And thanks again for letting me share the little bit of time today with you and your audience. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Like always, please don't forget to go Code 6 and be safe out there. Thank you.